Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. As you know, here on the Pace Report, I like to continue to interview as well as profile musicians that are taking the bull by the horn musically and are really turning heads. And this saxophonist I'm going to introduce you to tonight has been on the New York music scene for about well over a decade, and he's backed the likes of Roy Haynes, Dave Douglas, as well as Jeff Tain Watts. Saxophonist Marcus Strickland has a really dynamic record, which is on the Blue Note Records imprint, that showcases his band Twi-Life. And what he's doing is he's tweaking jazz and sculpting it to the form of all the other contemporary forms of modern music, but also moving forward in the fusion fashion. Tonight I had a chance to sit down to break bread with Marcus to talk about, one, his residency here at the Blue Note, also talk about his album, as well as talk about his current role with the Blue Note All-Stars, which they just released an important record just a few weeks ago featuring the likes of Marcus Glasper, as well as some other luminaries of the next generation of jazz who are on Blue Note Records. Marcus, what was that downstairs this evening?
Oh, that's definitely my latest craze. this band is a dream come true. I've been putting together beats and all kinds of other stuff, even while I was playing with Roy Haynes years back. Um, and it's kind of like turned into this. This is kind of like my mad science project that I've been checking out. Yeah.
Marcus, this project is a little over a year old now, and now that the music is out there and you've performed this all over the world, what has been the fans' reception of this, and have you been tinkering out further ideas as you're playing this new music?
Oh, definitely. It started changing as soon as the record was made, actually. As soon as the record was done, we were like, okay, that's done. It was a different process than I usually do with all the production and everything. But as soon as we got on the road, everything just formed a different way, because when you're in front of an audience and you're doing everything on the fly, live and everything, it changes the whole aspect of the music. Like the chart is nothing. Like everything else just becomes about you and the people. So it just becomes a whole different thing, and I really appreciate that process. And the people that I'm playing with are very, very intuitive and very keen on things that would help a live performance. So it's like I have a lot of great help in getting a great performance out of that kind of material.
And you're playing the bass clarinet, the alto, and the tenor sax. And I'm going to go into that just a second, but this album was produced by Michelle, and
Yeah.
I want to understand how she brought this project or worked with this project to getting it out there. And also, she's produced other acts. She produced Ron Blake's record also many years back. She's very music forward as far as her ideas.
Definitely, yeah. I've been a fan of hers forever. I love her records, like Cookie Anthology, The World Made Me, The Man of My Dreams. I mean, yeah, it just, the list goes on and on. Her records are incredible. I love how she puts together the programming and everything. So I definitely thought of her, and I really wanted to work with her for the longest time, because she's just like kind of an enigma to me, And yeah, I'm glad that she came by our first performance, actually, the Twi-Life performance in 2013, not that long ago, 2013 at Winter Jazz Fest. She came by because like a lot of the people worked with her, like Charles Haynes and Mark Kelly was in the band at that time. And she came out, and I was like, man, I said to Charles, I was like, man, I would love to work her. Just tell her that I would really love to work with her on the next record. And man, she was very kind, and she accepted, man. And she really uses the studio as yet another instrument to express herself. Like when she's on the bass, impeccable. She's singing, man. It's just like the most incredible instrument you could think of is her voice too. And then when she gets in the studio, it's the same thing. She's highly talented, highly strategic, an incredible mind, and yeah, I'm just honored to have worked with her.
In doing this project, explain to people what Twi-Life is all about, because like I said, I've followed this probably from the beginning when this started. Very beginning.
Yeah, Twi-Life came about because when I was playing with Roy Haynes and Jeff Tane Watts and my own quartet, I was playing a certain kind of language that came out of bebop, hard bop, and all that stuff, Coltrane. And when I got home, I was making beats, and I called it my hobby for a long time. I had all these beats, and I numbered them. I think I have like probably a bank of over 700 right now. And yeah, it was just sitting there. I'll just make them. They just kept on coming out, and I was obsessed with Jay Dilla at the time, and Mad Lib and Pete Rock. I was just checking out all these producers, and I really loved the whole concept of making a groove that is probably like 2 or 4 bars of music repeated over and over again, and you never get bored of it. To have something like that is very powerful.
It's like kind of like what Branford Marcellus and DJ Premier did with Buckshot LaFunk like 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could call it, something like that. But it's, it was, to me, it was just like a hobby. And then like after a while, I started making my songs off of those vamps, off of those beats, and I named it Twi-Life because it just felt like it was two worlds colliding, like night and day colliding. So I took the word Twi-Light and applied it to life because that's how I felt in life. And yeah, it really started growing into something. I think at first it was more jazz oriented than anything else, but it just kept on growing, and I think it will keep on growing and changing over time. It's kind of like, it's definitely a place of refuge for me to write for this band, and I'm glad that it's coming off great, and a lot of people are loving it.
If I never know, at least I know that I'm alive. I know I'm alive. I know I'm alive. Ever think that is too much, and what you see is too far away to touch, and you still dare to dream? I think everybody ought to know I got the whole world wrapped up in my soul, because I am oh, I know I'm
I have followed you since you probably landed here on Planet Rock, New York City. And it's interesting how every person that you've played with has shaped you to where you are right now. Being a band leader, what is it that you are implementing with the band members? And also, what are some of the musical ideas that you're expressing, that you're trying to get out to your fans?
Oh, it's I'm definitely thinking about music that expresses what's going on now. That's like my key focus is to be. I think in order to be a true artist, you have to reflect the times, the current climate, or actually influence the next one. But it's definitely taking on a different meaning for me to be a musician. It means much more to me now. I've been studying griots and their their place in society, and I've been applying a lot of that to the way that I play music. And when I play music, I want people to feel like they're experiencing history, but like experiencing it, you know, in all at the same time, like every era at the same time. Uh, so I think it all has to do with letting go of the word genre and uh, embracing the word music. Music is very important to me. I listen to tons of music, different kinds, all the time. I was raised that way. My dad, he had an open reel deck stereo, and that's where the name of open reel deck came from one of my records. He was playing all kinds of music, and when I choose the band, I choose guys that are very universal in their approach to their instruments. They can swing as hard as they can swing, and then they can turn around and play a groove like nobody's business. Like those type of musicians. That's the guys I'm looking for, and a lot of times the guys that come into my band, they find it like liberating to play in it, because they don't have to stay in one genre at a time. They don't have all these rules. The only rule basically is to use their instinct. When a certain groove is playing, they're using their instinct, which basically is taught by ear. We're always listening to many different types of music. So this is the way I approach my band right now, and I'm really loving the results, because it feels much more refreshing. It doesn't feel like I'm obligated or stepping into shoes that are bigger than mine. I feel like I'm just being myself, so it feels very natural for all of us on stage.
You got a hell of a band.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
Appreciate it.
Ben Williams, who I've interviewed a couple of times here on the Pace Report, and you've got Chris Davis on the record,
Yeah.
Glasper's on the record. I mean, what were some of the things that you were looking for musically when you chose this band? I mean, you got Gene Baylor, who's a dynamic vocalist, what we've known forever.
Definitely. I'll start with Gene Baylor. Gene, I was reintroduced to her years later after she sang in the group Jeanne, and I met her as Gene Baylor. I did a gig with Marcus Baylor, and she was on the gig, and her voice was just incredible. It was like velvet, man. It's just absolutely blew me away. And when I started thinking of this project, like the first voice that I could hear over the music was Gene. I feel like it's a blessing to know these people, because I mean, what are the chances of doing a gig with her husband? I had no idea. I didn't even know all this stuff until many years later, actually. But yeah, she's an incredible singer and also a great lyricist too. And I'm finding out more that I do projects like this, that not many singers can be lyricists and not many lyricists can be singers. She has it all, so that's very cool. And I could say the same for many of the musicians who are on this record. Very versatile. I think that's one of the most important aspects of a musician, is to be versatile, not limit yourself to just one style. Because I think we're playing a language. It's a language that everybody gets. If I play an incredible groove, people from Switzerland are going to jam to it just as much as people from Texas. And it's like a very universal language. So I feel like the more that we expand our language, the more that we expound on the knowledge that we get as kids and just growing up and experiencing different things, the more rich our tone and our execution of the music becomes. So like, yeah, that's that's one of my goals, is to just be like the most universal person and that I can be. And a lot of the musicians that I chose, it was because of that. You know, you see Robert Glasper, Chris Dave, Charles Haynes, Keon Harold, Kyle Miles, the young bassist who's on the record, who's absolutely amazing. You check him out, you can see all the different projects he does. Michelle Indigno-Cello, she's a very universal person as well, and also born on the same day as Charlie Parker and Michael Jackson. So yeah, there must be a method to the madness, I think. But like, yeah, Big Yuki, oh my God, he can play anything, you know. So there's a certain freedom that we all have when we get together, and you know, that's how I went about choosing it. I didn't want to choose a snob. I wanted to choose somebody who's very full of love and open to music.
bass clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
You're very fluent on tenor,
Mm-hmm.
and you're very fluent on the soprano.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you conceive playing the bass clarinet versus playing the big old baritone saxophone?
Yeah, bass clarinet, I feel it's becoming one of my favorite instruments. The sound of it, the texture, the way that it blends with almost anything, and the range of it is incredible. You can go from like the depths of, you know, the treble clef, like touching on the bass clef, and then go extremely high. And hearing people like Eric Dolphy play it, it's really opened my ears to that sound.
Didn't Yusuf Lateef played it also?
Yeah, Yusuf Lateef played it, and there's many guys who kind of doubled on it. Benny Maupin played it. I mean, he still plays it actually, and yeah, it's an incredible timbre, you know. Roland Kirk, yeah. You know, it's definitely an instrument that saxophonists are in love with, and I think it might have to do with the fact that Adolph Sax was part of the design team that designed the instrument. You know, he's one of the people that perfected the design of the instrument, and that's why it looks kind of like a saxophone. But yeah, it's an incredible instrument. I think it's very different than the regular clarinet, and it's becoming a new voice for me. You know, I'm not a virtuous clarinetist yet, but it's just a voice for me. It's another voice that I add to the arsenal, and I'm just very in love with it. I'm starting to shed it like more than my saxophones and everything. About to get a new one very, very soon, and yeah, it's becoming just like a yet another way for me to express myself.
You are now part of Blue Note Records, and Don has headed up the label for some years now, and also you are on the upcoming Blue Note All Stars project also. Tell me about you being a part of this historic label, and two, let's talk about this project because you guys are getting ready to do some touring next year with this.
Oh yeah, it's incredible that I was chosen for such a group. It's very fun to play in. It's very dynamic too. Like every single performance that we do is so different than the last one, and you never know what's going to happen. Especially when you got players like Ambrose Akamushiri. He's like one of the most provocative players I've ever met. You know, like he will start something. He will start something, and then like, you know, the rest of the band's like, oh really? Okay, let's go up in there. And also we have people like Lionel Leweke who can just like
Lyrical.
Yeah, the most lyrical, dynamic guitarist I've ever met. You know, sometimes when he's playing the guitar, it looks like he's making a new one. Because I don't know what the hell he's doing with his hands, but he said he's muting the guitar in all kinds of ways. So he gets sounds out of it that I've never really heard. It's like having a synthesizer, but it's actually an acoustic instrument. And also his voice is absolutely amazing. It takes you back to the motherland and everything. Him being from Benin, and yeah, it's and yeah, everybody is incredible. I mean, when we were making the record, I saw Derek Hodge basically make he made a composition that had all kinds of leading tones and incredible voice leading and all that stuff. He did that on the fly right then and there. He recorded the first part, recorded the second part, and it was like the most incredible orchestration that I've ever seen, but it unfolded in real time. He's an incredible musician. You know, like all these guys they just wow me, and to be a part of it is very exhilarating. And yeah, I can't wait to play some more with them. I always learn something a lot from them.
What's next for you? Because I know that you riding very high on this record, and tonight this is the second of the third residency at the Blue Notes. We got one coming up next month.
Yeah, it's man. I'm getting ready for the third one. I try to make them all different as possible from each other, and I'm working on several projects at the same time. I got like a film project that I'm working on. Is like 25 minutes of film. 25 minutes of music, and it's supposed to be applied. There's films that are supposed to be applied to this. So like 5-minute films applied to the music. I'm working on that with a guy in Germany named Axel, and he's hooked up with all these filmmakers. And I've been making that, and I've also been making like a remix record. I've also been working on the new record. I just finished laying down some vocals from Bilal on this new track that I just made, and I sent that same track to Pharoah Monch. It's an incredible time for me. I'm really excited about the many different ways that I'm being utilized, in this world. Like at the same time as all this is going on, I'm in this fairly new group by Chris McBride called New John. And in that group, I'm starting to play a lot of bass clarinet in there too, and starting to do all kinds of intricate things along with Chris McBride, because we're kind of in the same range, so it's an exciting time for me, man. I'm basically able to do everything that I've ever wanted to do for money. I'm a happy dude, man.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the incomparable Marcus Strickland. Make sure you go out and support his monthly residency at the Blue Note. For showtimes as well as information and directions, please go to his website at marcusstrickland.com. Also, Blue Note Jazz Club website at bluenotejazz.com. Also, make sure you go out and support and buy his current CD, Marcus Strickland's Twi-Life, which is now available on the Revive Music imprint as well as Blue Note Records. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.